All right, I know I said I was going to react to Clavin and Pearl's interview, but Knowles just interviewed Pearl, and this was a much better debate. So we're going to be reacting to this one instead. Let's get into it.
What percent of women do you think are marriageable?
What do you mean by marriageable?
No tattoos, no debt, not overweight, doesn't openly hate men. It's not the majority, Michael.
What's the number?
These are confirmed by an actuary. It's less than 5%.
And I'd be willing to bet money it'd be less than 5%, because if you actually have some realistic standards for what you want for a wife, like, I don't want to be divorced in like 50 or 60 years from now, then yeah, it's probably way less than 5%. This new generation's gone wild.
Again, I'm not saying that the world is teeming with women who are traditional and,
right. Would you agree it's the minority?
Who are marriageable?
The minority. Even if we look at just overweight. 70% of women. Sometimes I think you guys are so out of touch.
I don't think
it's a disqualifier. 70%. You want a fat wife? Like, come on. No, guys, this is what you're telling men to sign up for?
Well, what I'm telling men, I guess what I'm telling men.
And that's my point. It's not the majority. And when is the last time you dated? Like 10 years? You've been married for a while. So sometimes you talk and I just think you're a bit out of touch with
You're saying I'm, okay,
market.
No, that's fair. You're saying I never swiped, I never did any of these things.
Correct, and I'm saying I've interviewed 1,000 women. I could give you examples in real life too. I mean, that's a ton of people, Michael.
Sure.
So,
sure. I have no doubt that the dating pool is difficult now.
This is exactly why people say you're out of touch, Michael, is because when you were dating, it was a completely different time. Dating apps changed everything in a matter of less than 5 years.
But the problem is with most of those stats, most of those studies were done before social media. Anyone that dated before and after social media knows it completely changed the game.
How do you mean?
Well, women now have access to men anywhere. And cheating goes up. Like dating, the number one way people are meeting under 30 is dating apps.
Yep.
I mean, this is a completely different dating marketplace than when you were dating.
Though I guess,
and that's my point.
When I was dating,
there's no Catholic woman in divorce court. Women will throw out their religion very, very fast when they want to leave. You cannot pray a woman that wants to leave you into not leaving you.
I think you don't the statistics I just cited show that you can, because the divorce
but the
rates are so
problem
much
with
lower.
those is they include women over a certain age. The women under the age of 35
You're saying
have been on. So yes, it's completely different.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think you can't really deny it with what you've seen. You go on whatever podcast. Are those the same women of our grandmothers and great grandmothers? No, it's completely different.
It's not
Again, the Tradcons cannot accept the fact that the women these days are not what they were just 10 years ago. Like they seem to refuse to accept the fact that things can possibly even change that quickly in that amount of time. But it's like the only way that you would see this and believe it is if you went and saw it for yourself. But I mean, shit, even Knowles has interviewed these women face to face before and seen the debauchery that's out here that we have to deal with, and he still can't even believe it. He thinks, surely it's just a few circus freaks out here. It's not like a majority of women. No, it's a majority.
Catholics, Jews, Muslims, Orthodox Jews and Muslims. Divorce numbers are way lower. And you acknowledge those statistics, but then you say,
No, I don't.
You don't? Okay, all right.
No, because most of those include women over a certain age.
Right, you're saying the young people, it's totally different.
Time, Michael.
So what is...
And that's the same thing, like the time my parents got married in is completely different.
So what changed, other than now they have, so they meet on apps rather than at bars, and that's the big change? That's why we can't believe the statistics anymore?
Well, the average marriage is 7 years now, Michael.
Yeah, get that right. People of my generation, their average marriage is 7 years. 7 years. That's nothing. Okay? Like I thought marriage was till death do us part. Because I know some people from my generation, they've been married 2 or 3 times already. And they're not even 40.
So what's the alternative, though? Because I totally agree with you about the risk and the pitfalls of modern marriage.
Well, I think that the laws need to change first, because regardless of what I say,
before people get married?
Well, it's not about what I say. It's about what people will do. You guys have been preaching marriage for a decade. Men aren't signing up.
No,
men aren't.
The rate of
but the rate of getting married is going lower.
Right, but we also
men are getting married.
We redefined marriage at federal levels.
Correct.
We've also had divorce for 50 years.
Yeah, correct. No, you're right. You're correct. But I'm saying laws need to change. Personally, if it was Pearl's world,
Yes.
and I think you're probably going to have to find somewhere that meets in the middle for something to pass. But if it was Pearl's world, I wouldn't have alimony. I wouldn't have child support. I don't think you're entitled to it.
Yeah,
I don't.
I would certainly eliminate no-fault divorce, and I would greatly restrict divorce broadly. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think until you do that, you're going to have a hard time getting men to sign up, until women get in shape.
Sure.
If 70% of women are overweight, that's not a great sell to men.
But okay, so
yeah, 80% of women gain 20 pounds in the first 5 years of marriage.
Sure. Yeah, that's no good. They should stay fit.
That's you should stay fit.
Well,
right?
no, they should gain a lot of weight to have children. They should gain so much weight because they're having children.
But this is my point. You're not going to appeal to men by shaming them into marriage.
I'm not shaming anyone. I'm just recommending.
But I've heard you guys say things like you're not like a real man if you don't get married. I've heard this from the Tradcons camp.
That's not exactly true because some men are called to religious life. Some men are called to celibacy.
Yeah, the Tradcons are constantly preaching about the moral goods of marriage. What they refuse to talk about is the possible negatives and how it could ruin your life. It's just a complete and total blind spot for them. And they always love to bring it back to me. It's like, well, my marriage and my friend group and my social group. And it's like, that's great, bro, but we're not talking about you. Like, I'm glad you have your life so figured out, but that doesn't help any of the rest of us.
You would agree that men in general should not date women that had OnlyFans accounts.
It's not ideal.
Okay,
I don't think it's disqualifying.
You can't definitively say that a woman. Okay.
I don't think it's disqualifying. I mean,
well, I think you're going to have a tough time selling guys on that.
I'm not convinced of it. I mean, to quote St. John Vianney, the saints didn't all start well, but they all ended well. So I wouldn't recommend that people get involved in porn in any way.
Okay.
But there's also, on the men's side of things, men are in a little rough shape because of our modern culture too. A lot are addicted to porn. A lot have hooked up with a lot of people. A lot of kind of indulged perversions and things like that. Doesn't make them particularly marriageable either.
But why is it whenever we say something about the women, we have to say but men?
Well, because it's an observable fact, and marriage involves men and women.
I know, but all I'm saying, Michael, all I'm saying is don't date. Like, it's just crazy sometimes. I get so curious because I say men shouldn't date women that used to have OnlyFans. Like that shouldn't even be an argument. That should be like a.
I don't know. I mean, again, it's not ideal to have.
You wouldn't date a woman with an OnlyFans.
Well, I wouldn't date any woman now because I'm happily married.
No, but if you were single, right? You wouldn't do that.
It would be an obstacle. It would be an obstacle.
It would be such a big obstacle.
It would be an
obstacle.
Do it.
But that's the problem. I interview guys that are dating a girl for 6 months. They find out she used to have an OnlyFans account. These are real things that happen.
Sure. Yeah. It's not ideal. Though, frankly, I'm again to your point. I've been out of dating for a long time. But these days, can one find a girlfriend? I mean, I assume it can happen. But in modern kind of liberal secular dating, can one find a girlfriend who's never texted a naked picture of herself? I don't know. Women do this all the time now, and then it becomes a big scandal when they get.
Yeah. So do those women deserve to be wives?
I don't know that we deserve much of anything.
But that's my point.
Ought we to do it?
That's my point. Is the women of today are not the women of yesterday, and it's becoming more and more difficult to find the women that you're talking about, and there are not enough to go around.
But you're framing.
That's my point.
Sure, but you're framing this as a question of who deserves to be married. But my framing of it is what one ought to do. That marriage is a natural end of our nature.
I don't deal in oughts. I deal with what is.
This just goes to show how out of touch the modern Tradcons really are. They're literally out here telling you, hey, an ex-whore, that's fine. You can still marry that. And it's like, no, you can't. You will get divorced so quickly. One of the best predictors for unstable behavior is sex work. There's a reason there's a saying, you can't turn a hoe into a housewife, but you can turn a housewife into a hoe. It's because, it only goes one way.
What is marriage for? Like, what's the point of it? So what's the point of marriage?
I think that the point of marriage is, it's to create a union. It's supposed to be you are submitting to your husband's authority and you're creating a family.
And creating a family.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's forming a union. with certain roles and a structure, and to create a family.
And do you think that's how it's being used today for the average person? For the average person?
Yeah, it forms a union. It creates a family.
The average marriage is 7 years.
Yeah, but it's a union.
But
I mean, I think there's more to marriage than what you described, but I think that those are some basics.
The average marriage is 7 years.
Right, but that still forms a union and often creates a family. That's what you're talking about, the struggles.
Right, but it's supposed to be for life, not for now.
I agree.
And that's what I say. It's not about what ought to be. It's about what is today. And right now, a man cannot have children in this country and not be signed up for the state contract. So,
it's almost like every time you try and tell these Tradcons how bad it actually is out here in these streets, they just, like, they hear what you're saying, but it's like it doesn't process in their mind. Like, they don't understand that, like, we're not exaggerating. We're not making this up. This isn't biased data. Like, yes, this is new data, but that's because this is a very new phenomenon. It happened in the past 5 to 8 years, really. Unless you're staying up to date on the most cutting edge data, then the only other way you would know about this is if you're actually out here living it. And yeah, no kidding, the guys who are married with a great job, have kids, raising a family, of course they're going to have no idea about this. And it's like they can't see that. They don't understand how they're trapped in their own perspective. They can't see it from our perspective because they just do not see the craziness that is out in these streets.
Why do men have to sacrifice their security for women's security? Women have made the choice to leave marriages. Women have made the choice to collect alimony and child support. Why do men need to sacrifice their security for women's?
Because it is good for men to be married and to have children. It's not that they're forced or coerced to. It's good for them.
But then why is the reputation of marriage so bad? If this was a great product,
I don't think it's so bad. I think it's the most popular institution in human history.
No, that's not true. Because you're out of touch. Why do we have phrases like happy wife, happy life? Why do we have phrases like it's cheaper to keep her? Why are those these aren't made up, Michael?
Right, they're kind of funny little jokes about marriage, which is the enduring institution,
right,
the popularity of which is attested to by its permanence throughout human life.
Why do they ring true?
They don't really ring true to me. Happy wife, happy life.
Once again, Michael Knowles, we are not talking about you. We are talking about general society at large, which does not include you because, let's be honest, most men don't make as much money as you. And you even call yourself handsome. So if you're handsome, then you are by definition above average in attractiveness, which, let's be honest, most men are average. That's why it's called the average. It's interesting to see how stuck in their own perspective some people can become after they spend a little too much time in their own bubble.
But we agree so broadly that I'm not exactly sure what we disagree about. Mm-hmm. We agree that the divorce court system is dreadful. We agree that the divorce laws are terrible. Mm-hmm. We agree that modern dating is challenging. But I guess...
So what I would say to switch things, I think men shouldn't vote for either party. Because neither party is taking their issues seriously. I mean,
the issue of divorce.
Where is mandatory DNA testing? People differentiate
I would not
on
like
these
mandatory.
People that, around 5% of men, up to 30. I mean, it's disputed. I don't want to go back and forth all day, but a significant number of men are raising children that are not theirs. There's
a line in I think it's the Odyssey of where the son of Odysseus says,
"And what the hell does the Odyssey have to do with the possible 1/3 of all children being raised by a father who's not the biological father who thinks that he is?" Like, this is a serious issue, and he's just like, oh, I'm just going to quote Odysseus from that ancient Greek poem. Like, it's like he doesn't see how out of touch his responses are to these questions. Like, even if it was only 5 men out of every 100 who were falsely raising children that they believed that were theirs, like, that's still like a devastating thing. Like, when that guy finds out that that's not his kid, it's going to completely destroy his perspective on his entire life. Like, and then they wonder why the suicide rate for men is so much higher than women. Such a mystery.
Every man has to decide for himself what he does in his personal life. I think a good strategy could be that men walk away until the laws change. I think it's fair. Like, I think that's a good strategy. There are other ones. Maybe you could come up with some. You guys are one of the largest, political media organizations.
Yeah, a lot of what this interview is and a lot of what I cut out is a lot of Michael Knowles trying to get Pearl to say, this is the way the world should be, so this is the way that we're going to pursue making the laws. When that's not at all what Pearl's trying to do. It's like Knowles can't understand that Pearl is just reporting on the facts as they are and saying, look, this is how it is. I'm going to leave my opinion, which is what ought to be, completely out of this. Because sometimes we need to look at things through a rational lens and stop looking at them through a lens of this is how it should be, or this is how we want it to be, or this is what is good for the world. Like, yes, I'm sure almost all people can agree that this is what is, it would be better for the world to have more married couples raising children, staying together as a family. But the reality is that is not what is happening. The reality is after 7 years, she's leaving you and taking the kids, taking half your stuff, taking your house. Oh, and by the way, now you have to pay child support and alimony payments. So a majority of your income is now going to her so that she can continue to live in your house and sleep with random dudes who are probably going to abuse your children. The statistical probability of that happening is very high.
I mean, how else? I mean, what have conservatives succeeded in conserving the last 50 years?
Not so much as the women's bathroom, I guess.
But so you're asking them to get on a team that's losing.
Right. I mean, that's what Whittaker Chambers said when he left being a communist.
Yeah, and we don't care what Whittaker Chamber had to say about leaving communism. That has nothing to do with this. The point is, you guys are doing nothing. All you're doing is preaching, get married, get married, get married. And then when people are like, hey, that's a bad idea. Well, you shouldn't just get married, like, without, at least doing some basic checking first to make sure that she's not crazy.
Okay, if there are not enough wives, what are men supposed to do?
It's about 50-50 in the population.
If there are not enough wives, what are men supposed to do?
There is basically parity between men and women. So there are enough wives.
Okay. Well, then I'm sure you'll see a spike in the men signing up.
No,
for marriage.
I agree that there's a great deal of selfishness and liberalism, but I think that's the view that you are articulating, and the view of the red pill people is basically a view that presumes a liberal, secular, individualist anthropology that is contrary to natural reason and the flourishing of men.
No, I would disagree with that.
How am I wrong? You're saying men ought to just pursue their own interests regardless of, say,
I think
nature.
When you have a smoking gun, I mean, that's essentially what it is. Like, I tell you these stories and you just say, sign up anyways.
Once again, statistics have been stated that basically prove that, yeah, there's not enough wives to go around. And yet again, Knowles cannot accept the fact that if a majority of men want to get married and a majority of women do not want to get married, then there will not be a majority of marriages. There will be a lot of men who want to get married who won't be married, and then a lot of single women sleeping around with the top 5 to 10% of men, which is what's actually happening right now. This is why we say these people are out of touch, is because unless you've tried dating on these dating apps, you don't understand this is what it is like now. If you are not a top 5 to 10% man, you get nothing. Zero, zip, zilch. If you are a top 5, 10% man, then you can have a different flavor of ice cream multiple times a day, if you get what I'm saying. And it's like they don't realize that if you're not doing something that makes you appear to be a top 1 to 10% man, the women these days don't even look at you. You're invisible to them.
You do
you. Think every man should make the same decision?
In many matters, yes. Not between chocolate and vanilla ice cream, but between
Do you feel like you should tell
yes.
men what to do?
In as much as I correctly perceive the moral order, yes.
Okay. So you think that you know what's right for every man?
I think that I can. I have a
So like
relatively
Joe,
reliable. If you'd like
sorry,
to answer,
go ahead.
I think I have a relatively reliable faculty of reason and moral conscience, and so in as much as it is reliable, I can articulate the truth as I see it, which is all anyone does. It's what you're doing. It's what all people do when we speak.
Yeah, I don't think it's really our job as commentators to tell people what to do.
But it's our job as human beings to perceive the moral order.
Okay.
Right, and to form judgments about that.
Well, I disagree that. I disagree when you say it's the equivalent of feminism, because
I'm saying it's the equivalent of
right?
What you're articulating is a liberal and individualist view, and therefore it's similar to feminism.
I would say that right now, marriage is a feminist institution.
Not mine.
It's funny how you can point out the facts of like, there aren't enough wives to go around. And the fact of the matter is there's going to be even less and less in the next coming years. And his solution is still to just push marry, marry, marry. Anyways, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter that the quality of lives just keeps decreasing and that the number of wives just keeps decreasing. Just keep marrying those sluts out there in those streets and turn them into housewives. It's like, it doesn't work like that. You can't do that. You can try. Many men have tried, but that's how you get divorced. I feel like I keep repeating myself, but this is exactly why people in the red pill say the Tradcons are out of touch. They just do not understand. And they refuse to, it seems like, because you can throw as much statistics at them as you want. They just are like, well, I just don't feel like it's that way, so I'm just going to continue believing my feelings, even though there's plenty of statistics that contradict my feeling, which makes it just that much more ironic when he calls Pearl's perspective the liberal one, when it's like, actually, the people who follow their feelings are typically what we call the libs. I thought the conservatives were supposed to follow the facts. I thought facts don't care about your feelings.
Don't men have a moral responsibility to act in a certain way?
Men cannot lead women that don't want to be led. Yes,
then,
yes,
hold on,
yes,
that,
yes. Wait, I'm gonna
yes,
finish.
okay.
Let me finish, Mike.
Okay, I was trying to lead you.
Sorry. No. I do think men have a moral responsibility to act in a certain way. Yes.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, there you
but
have it.
I don't think men have to get married if there are not enough wives to go around.
But
it's like it doesn't.
If there are not enough women who you say are marriageable.
You know what's so crazy?
What?
Under the age of 35.
Yeah.
Now the problem is with a lot of these. I know we're gonna go
statistics are all fake, but I'm happy to hear them.
Well, I'd believe it too, just from interviewing 1,000 women.
Sure.
5 to 15% of women under 35 are on full OnlyFans, cam, or some sort of sex work. According, there's a guy who does research for me. He's really Dr. David Baker. He's like a published author, really smart guy.
That seems high to me.
That's what I thought too. I swear to God, that's what I thought. Until I interviewed 1,000 women. I can't even count how many sex workers I've met.
I guarantee you it's higher because I've met so many women and I have had so many friends tell me about so many women that have gone on to doing some type of sex work at some point in their life. And even if you exclude the sex work where they were paid for it, let's be honest here, Instagram, Snapchat, and all that social media crap where the girls are posting basically mostly naked pictures, basically softcore porn for likes, I consider that sex work as well. Like, just because you're not making money off of it doesn't mean that what you're doing is not sex work. What you're doing is basically the equivalent of sex work. I would know, I dated a sex worker, and the kind of stuff that I see these girls doing on Instagram is exactly what sex workers do on social media. That's how they promote their social media. The only difference is the sex workers are doing it for money. Most of the women out here are just doing it for likes and attention, which makes it even worse because it's like, what was the point of doing this? So that everyone in the world could see you embarrass yourself?
But how is a man responsible for women doing OnlyFans? That's a choice.
That's
what I think we should.
Men are the consumers in the case of OnlyFans, right?
Yeah, but
so they do bear some responsibility.
Well, I mean, even they have to post it before there's any consumers.
No, the reason they post is because there's a market.
Not really. You know what the average.
We're getting back to the chicken and the egg.
No. Do you know what the average OnlyFans model makes? It is not about money.
But they're duped. But why do they get on?
Attention. They want attention. You know, there's women on podcasts, and you see them. They say they'll do it for free. They want attention.
Right, but
I think you were on a show, right?
On whatever.
Yeah, didn't that girl say that she would do it even without the money? Or
maybe.
even if we go,
some of what they say gets a little blurry.
Let's go outside. Let's walk. Yeah. So I went to Vegas. Yeah. The women are walking around with the stickers on their boobs. No man made them do that.
The little pasties?
Yeah.
Yeah, but right. But why are they doing it? You're saying, again, I'm saying
they like the attention. They know it'll attract attention.
Right. So I'm not saying that women aren't culpable when they do bad things. But what I'm saying is that men share some of this culpability because they're the ones consuming it.
No, I think everyone's responsible for their own choices. And I think that includes women. And the more we coddle women and say, oh, you poor thing, it was the men. Oh, you were lied to by feminism. Oh, everything's everyone else's fault. That's why you have these women at 35 that act like entitled brats.
It's funny how he calls Pearl's perspective liberal, and then immediately after that tries to then blame the responsibility for the decisions of the women on someone who is not the women. Ironic, because I consider that some feminist propaganda right there. You know, like at the end of the day, everyone's responsible for their decisions.
I'm saying that you're responsible for the choices you make. And
ultimately, that's necessarily true.
that's my point. And so when you're constantly blaming everybody else for the decisions that you make, and I see that a lot with women, I see it's the government's fault, it's your school system's fault, even though, I mean, really, the school system's run by women.
Yeah, well,
teachers are mostly women.
Yeah, I mean, I get sure. Ultimately, the country.
Yeah, the media. Women make 80%. Women make 80% of consumer buying decisions. So the media is catering to women.
Yeah, sure. I'm not denying any of.
Yeah.
I'm not really denying any of these things. I'm confused because we seem to have arrived at this. You seem to be contradicting yourself, but
Where am I contradicting?
By acknowledging that the ways that we get knowledge will affect the way that we can exercise our free will, but then saying that the ways that we get knowledge, which are by definition environmental, don't actually affect our
But you can
exercise
also
of
get knowledge through life experience and like watching people that are older
but you don't
than
experience life alone. You experience life in community, which is my point.
Yeah, well, my point, I'm not trying to overcomplicate this, is just that women are responsible.
I think we're undercomplicating it, unfortunately, which is why you've reached an erroneous conclusion.
No, I think that women were responsible for the choices that we make, and I'm just
you have
not
said
really
that.
into. I'm really not into it. I'm just not into it. Yeah, go ahead.
Actually, Knowles, it's you who's contradicting yourself, because you're saying, yes, there are all these risks to marriage that are very real, that could very well be the death of you or leave you in a situation that, let's be honest, sometimes is worse than death. And yet you're still out here promoting it like it has no safety risks. Bring it back to that old example. It's like you're saying get in the car and drive around without a seatbelt on. Like accidents, I don't know how high the percentage of accidents are, but I know they're not anywhere near 15 to 30%. And everyone still wears the seatbelt, at least all the smart people. But as Knowles admitted earlier, even in the Catholic community, basically 30% of all marriages end in divorce. So if every time you got in a car, there was a 1 out of 3 chance that you would get in a car accident, would you not wear a seatbelt? I mean, you already wear a seatbelt, and the chance of getting in an accident isn't anywhere near as high as that. But it's like he can't make that connection in his mind because he just does not understand the risks that he's talking about are as severe as they actually are. Like, it seems like he's just downplaying the risks. It's like, well, yeah, that's a risk, but it's like, go ahead, do it anyways. Like, it's good for you. Put hair on your chest.
Men have to decide for themselves.
I think you're skirting the issue.
I think that men are tired of being told what to do by women. So I think every man has to decide. Do you disagree that every man should decide for himself what makes sense in his life?
I do. I think men ought to do what's right.
Okay. And you know what's right.
I hope I do. I hope I've cultivated my faculties of reason and moral conscience to such a degree that they can correspond with God's grace and basically lead me right. Yeah.
Oh. I mean, it almost sounds like you're playing God.
No, but I hope that I'm cooperating with God. And I'm a rational creature made in the image and likeness of God.
Okay.
And that fact is borne out in my reason, which is what we're supposedly here to do. And the fact, Pearl, that you keep backing away from using our reason to come to certain judgments about how men ought to behave and about good and bad and right and wrong seems to me a denial of what is basically the premise of any conversation, which is that we can know something about reality and come to conclusions about it. And I think you do come to those conclusions, but then you evade the responsibility for it by saying, I just tell men to do what they want.
No, I think that facts don't care about your religion. So I think facts don't care about the way you feel about them.
What do you think a fact is?
I think that
what do you think a fact is?
That women are paid to leave marriages. That's just a fact.
Here he goes again, preaching from his ivory tower. You know, I swear the Daily Wire used to not be so preachy about some things, especially when it was things where you had statistics that proved that they were wrong.
Look, I just don't, again, I'm not in the business of telling men what to do. And that's just not, you know.
But I think you kind of are.
Not really, not really. I just don't think.
Do you have any?
Because it depends on the guy. How do, you know, because you would first ask, like, what their situation is. Every person has a different situation.
But every man we're talking about is a man. And there are some things that are common to men, like human nature. And marriage, being a natural institution, is something that is common to men throughout all of history.
But it's not the way we do it today.
Some of us.
Marriage today is not marriage anymore. It's not. It's not marriage when
I think
it's not marriage today is not marriage anymore.
What do you mean by that?
When the average marriage is 7 to 8 years.
Oh.
When women leave 70 to 80% of the time. When women can file abuse or can accuse you of abuse on the way out the door, when women can put you on child support, when women can put you on alimony,
there are many attacks.
It is not marriage anymore.
I totally agree.
And
that we're confused about marriage. I totally agree.
And so, again, you know, I have a hard time telling men to sign up for an institution almost blindly.
I don't think blind. I think they should
with the consequences that come with it.
Don't you think?
And I've seen men on the other side of it. Men are 9 times more likely to commit suicide after divorce.
Yeah, divorce.
And it ruins men's lives every day.
But we don't just. That's not something we disagree on.
But sometimes it sounds like you guys downplay it by how.
I don't think so. I just think you're denying that you're advising men to do anything, even though you're saying it would be a good strategy.
No, I don't tell men what to do. One man might find that Christian virgin chick in the middle of nowhere that goes to Latin mass. One man might not find one close to him at all. I know someone that runs a matchmaking service for like Latin mass.
Great.
No, they're having the same problems. And this is for the Latin community. I know someone that runs one. He tells me the same thing. There's too many men. There's not enough women in this specific one.
Yeah.
And the women are a bit too high of standards, a bit delusional in what they have.
Again, I just had to show the clip of Knowles' refusal to acknowledge reality for what it actually is, and Pearl just out here laying it out for what it is, and Knowles continuing to blindly believe things are still the way they were 10 years ago. Again, this is why people keep saying, you guys are out of touch. Tradcons are out of touch. You don't know what it's like now. Because we tell you what it's like and you don't believe us, it seems like. We just keep repeating the same things over and over, and it's like you guys just don't understand that it's not the same anymore. It's not the same. It hasn't changed a little. It's completely changed. It's like the girl that was 300 pounds all through middle school and high school. And then halfway through college, she transfers over to your college, but now she's like a 90-pound fit in shape girl. You wouldn't even recognize her. That's what the dating scene's like. Except it's gone the opposite way. It went from the fit natural girl to the obese 300-pound girl.
What that institution ought to look like, rather than say, sit on your hands until we change.
No, I say fix the institution. That should be the number one thing, because men are not going to return to people are not going to return to marriage until you make the institution more fair.
Well, what they'll do is they'll return.
It doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't matter what I say. You guys have been preaching marriage for a decade, and the rates of marriage have still been going down. Why? Because the cost is too high and the quality of women is too low. How do you fix it?
Well,
you increase the quality of the women. You say stop being fat. That's the number one. Don't go on OnlyFans.
It might be on the list. I don't know if it's number one.
I mean, for men, that's like the number one thing.
I wouldn't say it's.
Okay.
I'm blessed with a thin wife. Not now because she has a child in her. But.
Okay, but you understand what I'm saying. Yep. And until you lower the risk for men, the utopia you're asking for isn't going to return.
Not a utopia. I'm describing the human condition for all of history.
Okay, but what you're asking for, the families will not return. And so I'm almost like trying to plead with the Tradcons. Yeah. You are not going to get anywhere shaming men for not getting married. The only way that you are going to see progress is by making the institution more fair for men and giving fathers access to their children.
But when you
this is one of my biggest riffs with Michael Knowles, is the fact that he refuses to deal with reality sometimes because he only wants to deal with the way the world should be. And he even admits that it's his own opinion and it's his own perspective, but it's like, Michael, sometimes you have to look outside of your own perspective to actually understand what's going on here. You can't see the whole world through one perspective and expect to understand everything. Like I was saying earlier about how people can become trapped in their perspective if they spend too much time looking through it.
even though the men don't want it.
Look at.
So you're telling a man now, you're contradicting what a man has to say.
Because you haven't been in that situation. Do you know what I mean?
I've been in birthing rooms a couple times.
Why do you guys make light of like situations that...
Pearl, I have been in the situation and you have not. I've been in the birthing room twice.
No, I'm talking about a man raising a child that's not his.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
not an uncommon thing.
At least one of my kids looks like me. The other one looks a lot like my wife.
No, but okay, but we're trying to make jokes, but this stuff is serious, Michael.
Yeah, his off-topic responses and his jokes just make it feel like he's purposely trying to derail the conversation and to ignore the harsh, brutal, ugly facts of the matter. You know, almost like he's disregarding them or glossing over all the negatives to try and point towards the positives at every opportunity he gets. And it's like, yes, Michael, we all understand there's many positives to marriage. That's why we all want to do it. But the reason we're not doing it is because of all the negatives that you refuse to acknowledge.
So the question, because I have a microphone on, was if my son were married and his wife cheated on him and had a kid by another man, would I support my son divorcing? I do not support divorce under any circumstance.
Yeah, I don't believe you, Michael. I don't believe you that there is no reason that you should ever get a divorce, because even though I don't believe in divorce, I still believe there is a legitimate reason to divorce someone, because you are not legally capable of controlling another person's actions. And even forget the legal part, you're not even morally, like, it's not moral to do it either. So, you know, and even if you're okay with being immoral, it's not legal anyways. So you can't do it. It just is what it is. You cannot control another person. Another person has their own ability to make decisions. And so what if your son married a beautiful Christian virgin woman? They were happily married, had kids, and then all of a sudden she got on to some social media, and she then became a terrible person, started cheating on him, sleeping, had guys in and out of the house, got addicted to drugs, was just a general hazard to her children because of neglect. Like, you cannot tell me that no matter how bad the situation got, you would just still tell your son, oh, you just got to tough it out, man. Oh, you got to help her fix this. Like, what if she doesn't want to? What if she is hell-bent on ruining you and ruining that relationship and everything else? I was saying earlier, you cannot control another person's actions. And while in one moment they might tell you, yes, I will never divorce you till the day that I die, I've seen plenty of women say that at the altar and then turn around 7 to 15 years later and take his house, take his kids, take his car. And because he's so stressed out, now he lost his job.
No, I think you're liberal in a lot of ways, and I think the red pill is liberal in a lot of ways, which is why they're ironically just the flip side of the feminists.
Well, I disagree with that, because again, you guys are the ones pushing men into a feminist institution, which marriage today is. Again, you're not going to see marriage return.
Well, marriage has been around long before Mary Wollstonecraft and feminism.
Okay.
It's a universal institution that has been around as long as human beings have been around.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a little silly to call it a feminist institution.
Well, the way it's run today is.
I think
the way it's run today, it's 7 to 8 years. and the man doesn't get access. I know, but no one's talking about you.
Well, I'm talking about me.
But that's the point.
We're just talking about me and you, Pearl. You know, the society is just me and you and everybody else.
Right, but that's the whole point. And I just, we could deal with shoulds the way the world should be. And I'm saying the way it is now. I'm saying the way it is now, marriage will not return until you start lowering the risk for men. Every guy should decide for himself. That's what I say.
But that's to say whiskey is tasty, and every man should decide if he wants to have whiskey.
What do you think the solution is moving forward for men?
For men, I think at the political level, it would be to reform the divorce laws and to ban no-fault divorce, to disincentivize divorce as a financial and political matter, to eradicate feminism from public life entirely, the whole preposterous ideology at every single level, to overrule the Obergefell decision, which preposterously redefined marriage and took sexual complementarity out of it, which is absurd. Once you did that, there's more to do. But just once you accomplish that at the political level, you go a long way toward fixing the problem. Then I would encourage a return of traditional religion in public life, because not only is society not secular, but it never can be, because all human conflict ultimately is theological, and everybody's got to serve somebody. So either we're going to worship the God who's like really God, or we're going to worship the God of money, or the God of casual sex, or the God of individualism, as the liberals want us to do. And I think as a lot of the red pill wants us to do. So I would restore traditional religion in public life, and the religion that built our country and our civilization. And then at the individual level, I would, I've now restored families, which is nice to say.
Wow, good job.
I would recommend that individuals behave in accordance with right reason and virtue. So you've already gotten rid of the liberalism and the feminism. You've gotten rid of the subjectivism, the kind of language you use, which is just do whatever you want, man. I don't think people ought to do whatever they want. I think they ought to do what is right, and that will cultivate their desires, their very desires, to incline them imperfectly, because it's a fallen world, but largely toward things that are good and conducive to their flourishing, which is how we lived until relatively recently.
So I don't disagree with any of that.
Yep.
My question is, what should men do in the meantime?
They ought to, well, be politically involved. I don't advocate an individual political quietism. They ought to be politically involved and elect good candidates and things like that. They ought to, at a practical level, go to church, work hard, put away the porn, don't do like drugs, do things you want to do, date in a way that is virtuous, and then get married and have children and be fruitful and multiply, because if we can't out-argue the liberals, we might at least outbreed them.
And what do they do if women don't want to get on their program?
Pearl, I guess you have a dimmer view of men than I do. I think men can be very persuasive, and I think that men can lead women in bad ways and in good ways.
Okay.
And so I would recommend that men take a leadership role, as we once had in the family and in society.
Can men lead women that don't want to follow?
Yeah.
Okay, I disagree. I don't think men can lead a woman that doesn't want to follow them. I think that's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, like I was just saying, you cannot control someone. And yeah, I skipped the whole word salad because the word salad wasn't really that relevant to what Pearl was trying to ask. It's interesting how, while Pearl was simply saying, I'm simply here to report the facts and to try and describe what it is like right now, Knowles just cannot get out of the perspective of what it should be. And he frames every question to her in, what should it be? What do you think it should be? How should it be in your world? When no one here wants to talk about what it should be like. We all have our own ideas on what it should be like. The problem is how it currently is, not what it should be.
Yeah.
The only place in which we really disagree, I think, is that, as you've admitted, you adopt a little bit more of a liberal worldview. Whether that's because you say, well, it's just the way things are, man, or because you exalt the individual and the free choice, just choose to do whatever you want.
I would say I describe the world as it is, where you describe it how you would like it to be.
And I would say
I deal in is, and I would say deal in ought.
But I think oughts derive from is, because I think that nature has an end.
Yeah, that last clip was just a microcosm of basically the entire debate, encapsulated in a few sentences right there.
Some men don't have the option to get married, Michael.
I'm just saying, should they? Would it be good for them to do it? If
I don't deal in shoulds. I deal with what is. Yeah.
Well, you do deal with shoulds in some ways, right? Mm-hmm. You do say some things are better than other things, but on this question, you're not willing to do it, which is why I say that the red pill, though it acknowledges many problems in the world, that the red pill diagnoses a lot of problems. The red pill ultimately fails in its prescriptions. And is ultimately kind of the flip side of feminism, because it adopts a basically liberal
It's tough because the prescriptions kind of, I don't really do that. There's different content creators that prescribe different things.
I think you prescribe a little
bit. Some things I agree with. I'll give one prescription, actually.
Okay.
I'll give one, just one.
All right.
If you get married, get a prenup.
No, you can't get a prenup because it invalidates the sacrament.
Really?
Yeah, a marriage is fully giving of yourself to the other person, no strings attached.
You don't even believe in prenups?
Certainly not. The nearest I would come to a prenup would be, I call it the Michael Knowles prenup, which is, and I'm sort of cheekily suggesting it because I really object to prenups in all circumstances. But the Knowles prenup would be whoever initiates the divorce forfeits everything.
Okay.
That's the nearest that I would come to a prenup.
Okay, so you kind of, but in 2024, you wouldn't advise a guy gets
30-24, 40-24, wow. 10-24.
Sorry, I'm just shocked. Like, you hear the stories I'm telling you. You know the state of marriage
I'm articulating
today.
The Catholic view of marriage.
You know the state of women today, and men still can't get prenups?
Right.
To protect themselves?
Right.
Yeah, we all understand you're a devout Catholic, Michael, but once again, the situation I posed earlier with your son, and what if it was your son married to just a horrible witch of a woman who was just hell-bent on completely destroying him and his family and his children, you would tell him to try and fix it, even though she was intentionally doing everything she could to try and break it. You can't force someone to do something they don't want to do, especially when that something is making a relationship work. If she has decided she does not want it to work, it's not going to work. Saying, I will never divorce you, baby, is all fine and good until you're in divorce court and she's divorcing you and there's nothing you can say or do about it because you're getting divorced, bud. It's like he refuses to even admit that that's a possible reality. It's like, we understand that in your little social bubble, that never happens, but that's your little social bubble, buddy. It's not the rest of the world out here.
Yeah, I think men should protect themselves.
Well, you are shocked to discover that I'm a Catholic. You're
no,
shocked.
I'm shocked that you don't think that men have a valid marriage if they want to protect themselves in any way.
No, I hold to the Catholic view of the sacrament of matrimony.
Okay.
That's shocking these days, I guess.
Yeah, because we all know you're actually kind of a hypocrite, because let's be real, Knowles, if your wife did what I was describing and just completely went off the rails and did everything she could possibly do to try and ruin your life, you're telling me you would never divorce her? I don't believe you. Because if she was acting actively maliciously, nothing illegal, but what she was doing was basically malicious, but, riding that fine line of not technically illegal, but immoral, and she just refused to get better, like, how many years would you put up with it? You would eventually divorce her. Given enough years, you would eventually divorce her. Like, no one in their right mind is going to tolerate someone in their life who is actively trying to destroy their life. But that's the position that you have put men in now, where the women get paid to leave the marriage and the men are punished for it. So even if the woman is acting out of line and acting crazy, there is nothing the man can do about it except hope and pray that she doesn't divorce him and take half his shit after she just treated him like shit. This is why you're out of touch, Michael. You refuse to accept the realities of what it is like now. You cannot understand how much it has actually changed. And you refuse to deal in how it is, and you only want to talk about how it should be, when how it should be is only half of the solution. Because like Pearl said, to fix a problem, you have to understand the problem. If you don't understand what the problem is right now, then you're not going to be capable of creating a realistic solution for it. That's my reaction for that. If you made it to this point, you better subscribe and leave a like. And because YouTube hates me and is deleting my views, go follow me on Rumble.